Fellow Blender enthusiasts, my name is Michael, I'm a concept artist and I'm learning Blender to animate my concept art. So today I want to talk about smoke animation and my technique, how I use it. So this is the scene that we are dissecting, and we obviously have some layers of smoke in the foreground, in the midground and in the background. So how have I been animating them, and what is my line of thought behind this? Well, obviously you can use smoke simulation, but I decided against this for several reasons. First, it's very render intense, or I assume it is. I haven't really tried it out, but I know from other types of simulations that it can be extremely taxing on the CPU. Plus, you have to make thousands of adjustments so it gets this artsy type of movement that I want to have, and I don't really have the type of control I would like to exert on smoke simulation. And there might be other emergent problems like some kind of cache baking that you have to do, so you will not get any type of errors, which I got by simulating embers and the flags. I constantly had to bake it because there were some type of cache errors, and two types of simulations clashed and something was still in the cache and whatnot. So I wanted to avoid this and make it controllable, make it artsy, and basically save on CPU time. So what I did, I downloaded a couple of brushes for Photoshop and painted some smoke in Photoshop. This is a step that I won't show because it makes the tutorial too long, and it's more a conceptual tutorial. It's not a step-by-step super basic tutorial. It's more about the idea. If you want to have a more basic tutorial, let me know in the comment section, but right now I'm focusing only on the concept behind it. So let's open a new file, then I can show you the procedure quickly. So unfortunately also I have to delete the stuff. I import an image through the Images as Planes plugin in Blender because I work with a lot of alpha channels naturally. So let's take, where have we smoke? I need smoke, good old smoke. Let's take this one. My material settings is always shadeless and pre-multiplied for later use. This is important, not for the demonstration itself, but especially if you work with depth of field. I use these configurations, so rotate it around this x-axis and make it visible. Okay, there are a couple of things that are important from a workflow type of view. First, I want to minimize the area that I'm modifying to only the smoke visible, because I have tons of stuff that is unnecessary, basically because I exported it that way. It's easier and more convenient for me, especially if I need to exchange some type of graphics. It's easier to stay in this same resolution when you export your PNGs. So I go into edit mode and I can take, for instance, the loop cut, which is absolutely the tool I want to have here. And the most important thing while limiting the area is stay within quads. Just try to make faces with 4 vertices. Otherwise you will get n-gons and you cannot use the subdivision operation anymore. And I don't want to have this problem. So just for good measure, just for a good, for a good habit, just make it always quads. No matter how you dissect it, you can also use, for instance, the knife tool or something like this. Make sure you have always quads. Because right now I select everything, I right click and go to subdivide. I can do the subdivision operation, which wouldn't be possible if I have n-gons. And I think this is more than enough subdivisions. No, it's enough. It's enough. You could also use more, but this is the amount I need to have. So the next step is the key component, and you can find it here under vertex groups, namely under shape keys. In Cinema 4D it is called pose morph, which is used primarily to animate facial expressions when bones do not work as an animation tool. You can basically reshape all your vertices to a specific position and get even more detailed access, right? So here you have to be cautious of one thing, in which edit mode you are, or let's say if you're in object mode or edit mode, because if you're in edit mode you cannot add keys, and you have to be aware what kind of mode you are. So in object mode I can add keys with this plus symbol. So the first shape key is my basis. This is the original position of the vertices within my object, and I add another key, and now I get this type of parameters which are important. So in order to modify the key, I highlight the key, click on or go into edit mode, which I access through tab, and now you can change certain things. For instance, you can pick a couple of vertices, move them around or rotate them a little bit, and when I go out of edit mode, it jumps back to my basis pose. And the reason for it is because the value of my first key is at 0. So when I change this parameter, my smoke also starts to change. And you can see, there is some potential in this technique. To be more refined, I will show you another thing that helped me. So I deleted the key, added another key, go into edit mode, and now activate this here, which is called proportional editing. This is basically an edit ability with a fall off, and our current fall off is set to smooth, which is totally okay. When I click on one vertex point and I click G for grab, for instance, he moves everything within this fall off, and the size or radius of the fall off can be adjusted with the mouse wheels. So when I scroll up, I think it should be smaller. Yes, now I can even see the circle of modification. So it looks like this, and I think it's a really cool tool that makes editing very organic. So yes, you can move the smoke around a little bit if you want. Let's make it like this. But what's even more efficient or more believable is if I use the rotation tool in combination with my proportional editing, because now I can twist the smoke, and I can twist it on different vertices with different degrees. For instance, I take this one in the top and twist it a little bit more. I take this one here and twist it a little bit more, like this. So it looks like a vortex, basically. A vertex vortex. Haha. Okay, and this here. So when I go out of edit mode and I change the slider, it looks like this, which has some interesting qualities. Of course, this technique is a little bit limited in terms of time you can use it, but it comes from I don't want to say it originated in After Effects, but this type of visual style is something that I used in After Effects, and I wanted to replicate it in Blender, and I have more tools at my disposal here, which is really great, because in After Effects I tried to use puppet animation and this stuff, this kind of things, and it doesn't give me as many options as I have here with Blender. So it looks already really good. Another thing to smooth it out is go into your modifier tab and add Subdivision Surface. It just smooths out the subdivisions a little bit more, and you will avoid any types of artifacts that can occur if you don't have enough mesh detail, so to speak. So now it looks really, really smooth and is very usable. So how to animate it is quite easy. The thing here to pay attention to is stacking stuff on top of each other. So for instance, I use several axes of movement, the first one being the global position, which I code in here. Don't need the rotation. And let's say 80 is my other keyframe, so I move it on the z-axis up, for instance, because smoke goes up. So I only have to code, or I only have to keyframe the z-axis, but out of habit sometimes you want to shift it to the side as well. So you create new keyframes on another type of axis, so it moves up and down. And in order to animate your vertex point, your shape keys, you also add a keyframe on frame 1. And when I'm on frame 80, I will turn up the value and create another keyframe, and I have 2 types of motions layered on top of each other. And if I play this, it looks like smoke, right? Quite convincingly. So yeah, this is the basis. You can already work with that. Everything beyond that is very, very conceptual. And what I mean by that is you have to make trial and error and play around and look what try out what looks good and what doesn't. For instance, you can duplicate this animation, put it behind this animation and change it with a different key, so you can reuse the same image, but you have 2 types of movements behind each other, and it looks even more organic, which I have done in the animation. Sometimes I was too lazy. I don't like to jump between applications for this type of stuff. So I take the image, mirror it, animate it differently, animate it slightly globally, also slightly differently, and then it looks very, very organic, and no one in the world would ever know that I reused an image because it's distorted in a different way, for instance. The last point that is maybe important to know is the graph editor, because it usually jumps to whenever I have to zoom out to the like this and this. Okay, now I can see it. When I go to the animation of the value of my key, it's kind of a Bezier curve, which means it eases in and eases out. This might not be what you want for your animation. And in order to change that, I select both keyframes and right click. Oh no, is it right click? Ah yes, it's right click, and there is the handle type. I can click it to vector, which means it's only a linear change. It means that the change of the value of my shape keys gets changed linearly. Otherwise it would be some kind of, I don't know, sinus type of wave or whatever. So it eases in and eases out. And I don't always want to have this type of movement. In terms of camera movement or other things, like if you rig a person, then you have this type of acceleration and deceleration movements. Not here. It's just smoke that's going up and it's quite linear. So I want to have this type of parameter change set to linear, right? So yeah, these are things that are that you have to put into consideration from if you want to change the things in a more organic way. And the same goes for the global movement. Now everything is linear, there's no deceleration, and it looks more like smoke movement. Well, this is basically everything you have to know for this type of animation. If you have any questions, just post them in the comments. Thank you for your attention.